Black Belt Selling with Stephanie and Anna Scheller. I'm Anna.
And I'm Stephanie.
We are a mother-daughter team who are passionate about helping you not just achieve your goals in sales. We want to help you smash through those goals in sales through sales training and coaching. On Black Belt Selling, we bring guests, and today you get the two of us. It's going to be an exciting show because we're going to talk about an extremely important aspect of sales that most people think has gone by the wayside. But you can learn more about us by going to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Black Belt Selling. There we post content, motivational videos, and posts. But most of all, you get to see when these podcasts go live. So that's facebook.com/groups/Black Belt Selling. And you know, Stephanie, today as we've been talking about, what were we going to talk about? I think people, because we have social media, because we have email, because of all of the changes in sales, I think people think that the phone is dead. There's no need to use the phone for sales. What is your take on that?
No, I think you're right. I think there's even entire books out there written about how cold calling is dead, and the phone, go out and especially, you got to keep in mind, right? No one understands this unless you've actually lived here. But you're in a small town. I'm in San Antonio, which is basically the largest small town you're ever going to live in, and it, inside of a city like this, everyone goes, oh well, we really just need to network and connect.
There we go.
It's all about networking. It's all about connecting. And I know people literally go from networking event to networking event to networking event and never close a darn deal.
I think that's an easy trap to get into,
Yeah.
because we kind of get into that. Well, if I just become their buddy, but you see, if we're not willing to ask them for some sort of commitment up front, we're never going to ask them for any kind of commitment. We're certainly not going to ask them. If we can't ask them for their business card, if we can't tell them we're going to give them a call, we're not going to ask them to buy from us. It's just that simple.
Oh yeah, absolutely. How exactly, we're getting a little off track from our topic here, but I think this is important because if you can't, if you're so busy becoming friends, a lot of time we do this because we're afraid of asking for the close, which we're not necessarily going to talk about today. We have some great podcasts out there about it. You should totally just go to all of our podcasts. Right. But totally recommend, it's not just about networking. It's not just about, sales is not just about connections. It's about selling. It's about closing the deal. It was funny today. I sat down with a gentleman and he comes in, he sits across the table from me. He goes, all right, what? And I started to talk and I was like, I'm going too long. So I cut down to the chase of it. And then I 5-minute close, slid the paper across the table. And I was like, all right, ready to go? And he goes, yeah, sounds good. Okay, great. Totally was prepared to give the guy all the details and all the information. And, sometimes you just have to be able to recognize when to go for the close.
Exactly. And you know what? The way you can do that is we actually have a lot of videos up on YouTube. So just put Black Belt Selling in the YouTube search bar, and it'll bring up all our videos. We've actually got a playlist now. So you can just start going through. Yeah, it's really cool. So, but our topic today is not closing, although that is really important. And certainly we're not trying to diminish that at all. We are going to talk about phone calling because so many people think that phone calling is dead. And we're going to talk about a few things that are going to help you with your phone calling, but you want to be on the lookout because we're putting together a course on phone calling that you're really, really going to want to dive into because this is such an important part of our business. One of the things about phone calling, Stephanie, before we even get into our tips, we have to realize that most people would rather close deals over the phone than arrange for a meeting, try to get together. It's actually, people like that because it's a faster way. It gets the deal done quicker, and then people can move on with their agenda because when we're calling people, we're interrupting them, which is okay. We gotta be cool with that. That's the way it is. So we have to find the right way to interrupt them. But people like to do business by phone. They really,
We
really
really
do.
do. I joke about it, but I'm like, seriously, who wouldn't want to close deals in your PJs? I mean, like, this is the best job in the world, making money from bed. Like,
I
who
know.
else gets to do that except millionaires and billionaires? So I think that's fantastic. I do want to address, so real quick, so this mini course we're talking about, it's one of the things we do inside Scheller University, where once a quarter we put together a mini course. It's less than 20 videos, and it's really, really cheap. We're going to price this one out once we get it all recorded, but it's like Scheller University is $1,000 for the whole year. This course is like a tiny little fraction of it. Now you get it for free if you're already a member of the university, but for those of you guys who aren't, you can have access to the course for very, very inexpensive. So that's what we're doing with these mini courses. But in the meantime, let's talk about phone selling. What is the number one most important technique, concept to make phone selling work?
Hello, pick the darn thing up. Pick your phone up. It's, if you have trouble thinking about this as your phone, which, I understand there can be apprehension. Today, Stephanie, I was just talking to Mark, the sales hunter. Awesome guy, great guy. We're going to get him back on black belt selling because he's just a lot of fun. But you know what? He says, I can't tell you how many people I have to talk away from the edge of the cliff. They're just so scared to pick up the phone. He said, it's not that hard. You just reach and pick it up.
But haven't you heard of all of the people whose phones have been chewed off or whose ears have been chewed off because they put their phone to their ear? Haven't you heard all these stories? No? No, actually, I haven't.
Either. No, now I've been chewed out by going in person and talking to people, but not over the phone. And you know what? And here's the thing. What's the worst thing that can happen, Stephanie? What's the worst thing that can happen?
Happens is they say, I'm not interested. And you know what? Unless you get really aggressive with them, they don't tend to get really aggressive with you.
Or they can do this, click. And then you call back and it goes to voicemail. Yeah, move on. But what if I don't have that many leads, Stephanie? Well, that's a whole other topic. You need to get to the YouTube and take a look at those things. But pick up the phone. The phone's, it's not going to do you any good to have it over here in your stand charging.
Well, and I want to clarify something here. Pick up the phone. Phone selling doesn't happen via text. Okay?
Oh.
You cannot see something. We start doing this thing, and I'm totally guilty of it too. I pick up the phone, I'm like, you know what? I could call him, but I bet he's busy. Instead of interrupting his day, let me just text him real quick. And then you send off the text and you don't hear back and you're like, well, I made 32 contacts today and nobody got back to me. I didn't get any sales. And what turns out is you just sent 32 text messages. That's total BS. That is not phone selling. Pick up the phone, put in your headset, start making calls. You can't close deals if you aren't talking to people. That's just math.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you're doing stuff over email and all of that, I always call people. Even in my business, the housing business I'm in, a lot of the work is done by email. But I secure the deal by phone.
Over the phone, yeah.
You have to. People want to know, number one, that you're real. And number two, we're talking with a lot of energy. And that's a tip. When you pick up the phone, here's something. I'm going to do this right now. Watch.
For those of you guys who aren't watching, she just did jumping jacks.
Jumping jacks. You gotta raise your energy. Those were jumping jacks for those who couldn't tell what that was. All that fabric jumping up and down. Those were jumping jacks. Okay, so, but you get your energy up because here's what happens is you start to think about how unpleasant it is to pick up the phone, and you start to think about what if they hang up on me, or you start to think about what if they say no, and then your energy dives.
Well, and I want to actually make a point here. Some of you guys, if you're watching this, you might have noticed Anna did something very, very telling there. And there's a lot of science behind this. But the smaller you make your body, the more it releases stress hormones. Just
Ah,
standing big and tall and just spreading out your arms, just standing there for just a minute actually drastically drops the stress hormones and drives up your happy hormones. Now, I don't remember what the heck they're called, but I do remember stress hormones go down, happy hormones go up. I think it's dopamine goes up or something like that.
the
But just
endorphins go up,
standing
right?
more space drives your endorphins up. And so if you notice when Anna was talking about being sad, right, she kept scooching down into her little corner of the camera here. And when she was talking about being big, man, she started moving. And I want to encourage you, understand body language. We're kind of moving into point number 2 here.
Yeah, we are, aren't we?
Body language.
Okay, so point number 1, just quick, pick up the phone. Point number 2.
Point number 2, have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun doing this. You know, when I started in phone selling, I struggled a lot because for me, I thought I was bugging people and I didn't want to be a telemarketer, right? So when I was a kid growing up, of course, that was back when it was like the telemarketer heyday and everyone actually had a landline and the landline would ring during dinner. For those of you guys who are listening and don't know what a landline was, it was a phone that was attached to your building. It's crazy. Oh, look, she's got a landline.
Of course I do.
But so we had landlines at home back then, back in the day. And the phone would ring at dinner time and it was always telemarketers. And I would always see, dad would get upset at those telemarketers. Don't they know I just want to spend time with my family? And we would crack joke after joke after joke about the telemarketer. And so when I started phone selling, all I could think of was, oh my God, I'm a telemarketer. And I sat there and I would sit there just scrunched back in my chair, typing and making the calls. And the more I got into what I was doing, the more I fell in love with what I was doing. The more I stood up, the more I moved around. I've got a headset and the cell phone, and I'll pace the whole building making calls because it makes a difference. When I get fired up, when I have fun making calls, I make sales over the phone. And when I don't have fun, I don't make sales.
And and here's the thing, when you're selling something, you're selling an outcome. You're not selling a product. You're selling an outcome. So how is somebody going to get excited about working with you if you're so sad? Matter of fact, I really recently got chewed out for not having enough energy in our radio broadcasts. And so I don't know if you've noticed, but I've really picked up. I really get excited now because, well, one, I love doing the broadcast. And then I realized in the back of my mind, there was this little voice that said, well, what if they don't like you? This is the same thing with the phone calling thing. What if they don't like you? And so you kind of hold back because you're afraid of criticism or you're afraid somebody's not going to like you. But the fact of the matter is, for every sale that you lose for being too enthusiastic, over the phone, my friends, you will make 100 more. That's a Zig Ziglar quote, but it is so true. Who do people want to be around? They don't want to be around the person who's sitting back in their chair, all hunched up, and you can hear in their voice they're tired. You can tell they're upset. You can tell they wish they were somewhere else. And, one of the things I find, Stephanie, when I'm making phone calls, and I make blocks of calls. I set aside time blocks of calls to do this. So I actually do them every other day, unless I'm following a specific lead, because I use one day for phone calling. I use one day to set up the calls, and then I make the calls the next day. So that's mine for my business. It works well for my business because it helps me to get prepared. So when I pick up the list of people to call, then I know what I'm going to talk to them about, and I'm also prepared to have a conversation. When I'm done and I don't necessarily go for, I have to have 10 conversations today. I want at least 2 quality conversations. And I may not make the sale that I want, but what I did is I built relationship, and I always try to get some sort of small commitment from somebody when I'm done. But let's move on. But it's so important. And you know what? The biggest thing, Stephanie, that we have to remember is when we smile, it comes across.
It does.
If we're not smiling, like this, then obviously People can tell I'm not smiling. They don't need to look at the video.
Well, and statistically, so uh, ever been to at a store, right? And someone walk, or maybe just on the street, or occasionally when you see into someone else's car as you're driving, and they've got this big grin on their face, and they're smiling, right? Like, so it was always the joke we would do it when I was growing up. You see someone driving towards you, and everyone in the car would just start waving wildly at them, like just to see if you could psych them out and make them think like, oh my gosh, how do I know those people? Right? And as soon as they see everybody in the other car waving and smiling and all excited, everyone in the other car would get all wavy and smiling and excited, even though they had no clue what the heck was going on. We are kind of, we're programmed to return that. So once you get on the phone with someone who's smiling and having fun, it's really hard to be down around that person. And statistically, it is very hard. It is, I can't remember the exact number, but it is well above the 60% harder to say no to someone when you're smiling.
True. Truer than true. And keep in mind that if you're expecting rejection, that's going to come across in your voice. And so expect good things. Expect good things. Well, let's talk about the setup now. Let's talk. So we've talked about just pick the thing up. We've talked about body language and getting yourself energized. Now let's talk about the setup. So there are so many ways that people can learn about their prospect before even having to pick up the phone. Really, we don't need to be afraid of cold calling anymore, because to be quite honest, nobody's a stranger with all of the platforms that are available to us, sometimes a little invasive, but platforms nonetheless, to help us learn a little bit about somebody, right?
Right. I mean, look, you can find out crazy stuff about pretty much anyone at this point online. So I really, really, the thing is that the day of the cold call is pretty much gone. I mean, so maybe they are saying cold calling is dead, and that, you're very seldomly, truly, legitimately cold calling someone just to say, hey, would you like to buy my product? Usually you're calling because you're going, hey, I saw you on this list and I'm really impressed with, what you've done. You can find so much information about people that there's no point to be cold calling anymore. There really, truly isn't.
No, I mean, think about it. And I'll just use my own example of how I got to Ireland. What started as a tweet party, which, by the way, I would love for people who are listening to join our USA Biz Party on Tuesday nights. We're going to be changing the time a little bit, so it's a little easier. But anytime you can put in the hashtag USA Biz Party, you can enter the conversation. You don't have to just do it at a specific time. Well, okay, so that's my, what do they call it? My paid announcement, unpaid announcement, whatever. But I started by just having conversation with people. And when I started to share about myself and they started to share about themselves, before I knew it, I was engaged with over 100 women in Ireland. Now, the interesting thing about this is that when I stepped off the plane, when I walked into the lobby of the hotel I was at, every person that walked up to me had already had some kind of relationship with me, already knew stuff about me. Now, if it worked for me with a totally different culture, then it'll work for us. And, we can find out a lot about people, their Facebook, because a lot of people have their Facebook that's fairly public. You can learn about companies on LinkedIn. Stephanie will tell you, I'm big on social media. I'm getting ready to do a Twitter workshop here in the local area in a few weeks. And I'm going to teach people how to use Twitter. I'm not going to teach them so much the mechanics as how to use the mechanics to build relationships. But ultimately, you build relationships by getting people off of Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, and you do it with a phone call. You know what? There's Skype. I mean, you don't necessarily, people actually don't mind meeting you on Skype because they like to see the people they're talking to.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's still awesome, right? Skype or Zoom, you get on, you connect it, and you look at the awesome thing is you can still be wearing your PJ bottoms, which is the best part of phone selling. Still, I'm just saying. Which I think brings us in a beautiful round circle. No, but you're right. I think it's fantastic that you can be sitting at home, chilling, and making a difference for yourself and for your business if you will just embrace the idea of selling over the phone. Sell via Skype, sell via Zoom. Understand that it is perfectly viable to be closing deals virtually. You just have to step out and embrace it. And when you do, and when you pick up the phone, you make the calls, you have fun, and you plan your calls, set it up for success, do some research, you are going to be highly, highly successful in this arena. And I want to encourage you guys to really take a couple of minutes and think about embracing it, because even though a lot of people are scared, they're like, well, my statistics over the phone aren't as good as they are in person. It's just because you don't have as much practice.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And the practice, and you know what? Here's the thing. It's going to be awkward at first.
Oh yeah.
It's going to be hard at first. What I find to use as a trigger for me is when I'm afraid to pick up the phone, I tell myself, oh, that's my cue that I have to pick up the phone. That's my cue that it's time to pick up the phone. I had a conversation today that it was not a conversation I was looking forward to. It was a conversation about somebody breaking a contract that hadn't given me the proper notice. And so when that person answered, I said, hello. I mean, I just picked up my energy. And even though it did not end up with the kind of commitment I was looking for, I made sure that my energy was high. And at the end, even though I didn't get the commitment I was looking for, what I did get is the satisfaction of knowing I didn't let the fear of phone calling hold me back. And here's something I want to encourage our listeners to do. And I think it's really important. But I think one of the things we have to look for is to create little commitments. Because sometimes I think we try to go for the whole kahuna. Is that the right word? The kahuna?
Right.
Yeah, the whole enchilada, if you're like us from Southwest Texas. What we try to do is, part of our fear is that we're afraid that we're not going to get to the closed sale. But the phone call, this might be one of a series of phone calls that have to be made. Mm-hmm. And just because you don't get through the first time, remember, we follow up until they buy or die, or they threaten to sue us. You know, don't do it if they threaten to sue you, right? But you ask for the little commitments, like, I'd like to send you this proposal. I'd like to send you some information. When can I call you back and we can go over the information I sent? Now, see, I didn't say I was just going to send the information. I have a part, but they have a part. Mm-hmm. Those are the little commitments. You're not asking for them to buy today, although that might be appropriate. But if you're not comfortable with right now, then get a smaller commitment. But make sure you get a commitment of sorts. I had another go ahead.
Well, and make sure when you go to get that commitment that you really important, you've got to get a verbal commitment. Don't just get the, oh, yes, sir, well, sometime next week. Say, okay, so if I call you next Monday at 10, does that work for you? Well, probably. Well, hey, could you do me a huge favor? I want to call at the time that works for both of us. So are you in front of your calendar? Can you check for me real quick? Great. Okay. I'm going to put it on my calendar. I'm going to send you a calendar invitation. Yes. Get them to commit. Once they've committed, they will actually go through with it. We as humans in general, we don't like to break our word. So if you've gotten me to commit, I was talking to a couple people, I said, if you get me to commit to show up, I may kill myself to get there, but I will show up. And most human beings do the same thing.
They do. And you think it's rare, but it's not, because people absolutely don't want to break their word. So let's do a very quick recap of what we've talked about. Today was about phone calling. We dealt with the fear of phone calling, and we said just do it. Pick up the phone and start. What was the next point, Stephanie?
The next point was to have fun while you're doing it, because like, let's be honest, life is short. What's the point of doing anything if you're not having fun with it?
Exactly. So do what you need to build your energy. Jumping jacks, if you like seeing what I was doing, or just standing up and raising your arms. It really, it moves the fluids in your body, and it really gets things moving. The next thing is set up the call. There's no reason why you can't have a little bit of information to help you make it a warm introduction when you're talking to the company, when you're talking to the customer, when you're talking to whoever it is, a JV partner, whoever it is.
Just remember, it's a little bit of information.
Yes.
Don't make this, you have to put together a whole thesis and a 6-page report on everything that person did in high school. Pull a little bit of information, one talking point to start with, because it's a great place to start.
Exactly. And what's our last point, Stephanie?
Our last point, well, you were the one talking about it more than me, so go for it.
Get a commitment. Get them in front of their calendar. If they're vague, ask them, are you in front of your calendar? What works? Or get them to write something, and then follow up. The first phone call may not be the one, and it's very likely not. But you're a salesperson, and you're a master. You're a black belt in sales. Black belts are persistent and consistent, and they practice.
And that practice is what is going to make you great at sales. And that practice is what is going to make you great at phone selling. So I really want to encourage you guys to get out there today, because you know what we've decided here at Black Belt Selling? We have decided it is no longer about just trying to hit the target. It's about smashing it. And if you're ready to smash the target, you're ready to join our tribe over at facebook.com/groups/Black Belt Selling. Please, if you haven't joined us over there already, what are you waiting for? It's free, and you get great contact. You get to connect with us personally. And you know what? You never know, if you come to San Antonio and we can arrange it, we just might end up taking you out to dinner like we're doing for one of our amazing listeners. We look forward to meeting you guys and chatting with you more. In the meantime, go out there, smash your targets this week. You've got this. Make it a great week.